Hi guys, good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome back to school, virtual school, school in quotation marks, however you want to talk about it. What we're going to be talking about today is we're just going to be taking notes. We're going to be talking about the fall of the Qin dynasty and the rise of the Han. And then we're going to really quickly talk about the Su, Tang, and Song dynasties. All of them, you can see the dynastic cycle from last week where there is a loss of the mandate of heaven and then it's reclaimed by a new family which will again rule for a while and then they'll start to decline and then they'll lose their mandate and on and on and on the cycle goes. History repeats itself over and over again. After the notes, I got some work to be completed. It's again really for the next 2 days. You're going to be just focused on working on your study aids. Again, you're going to have a check on Wednesday. So it's kind of where we're at. So, with that said and done, your notebooks are out and ready to go. So, we're going to talk about the Han Dynasty, which is going to see China from pre-millennia to the new one. So seeing that turnover from BCE to CE, or again BC to AD, however you're going to look at it. The Han Dynasty is the fifth dynasty that ever happened. Before we can talk about the Han, we have to briefly talk about what happened to the Qin. We talked about the Qin dynasty on Friday. Had one ruler who called himself an emperor. He buried himself with a huge army made out of terracotta. He was very strict. Again, a very interesting man, that's for sure. Problem with being as strict as the emperor of the Qin dynasty was, is that the people didn't like him. He spent a lot of his time and effort trying to censor people. Censorship in this instance is to keep them from talking, but expressing their opinions. He didn't want to hear people's opinions. He wanted people just to do what he said in order to make his terracotta army, to build walls, to build roads. He had to ask for a lot of money. So there was a lot of taxes asked of the people, which is very difficult. Of course, we talked on Friday about forced labor. He demanded the people of China work on these projects for him to get them done as soon as possible. Overall, people were like, hey, this is no good. So the Qin will lose their mandate of heaven and it will be taken up by the Han family. The Han dynasty is going to take control and they'll rule for 400 odd years or so. So, a little bit about the Han, where the Qin adopted legalism, one of our philosophies from last week. The Han decided to go back to Confucianism and take it a little bit further. And what I mean by that is that they're going to actually work it into their government system. It becomes the state philosophy, meaning the government is telling the people of China that this is how you should behave, this is how you should act, and you should follow the philosophy of Confucius, I apologize. Another piece of this, which is kind of interesting, is that they use the ideas of Confucianism to basically justify having the entire population get education. They felt it was the easiest way to teach their population about Confucianism and how you're supposed to overall behave and the role that they're supposed to fit and things like that. They do keep some of Qin's political system. They keep the branches of the government basically. So looking, there's a military and then a civil service and the censorate, which is like the keeping track of what's happening in the government. They're going to keep the land divided into provinces just because it'll be easier to manage. Something kind of interesting too that they take is like a note from the Qin dynasty is choosing government officials based on merit. Merit is like skill or qualification. It's not something that you're born into a political family and you're guaranteed a job. Anyone could, if they were talented enough, be able to get a prominent role within the Han Dynasty's government, which is a new and different approach to this whole process overall, that's for sure, right? The other thing, excuse me, is that during the Han Dynasty, the population is growing really quickly. It's getting really big, and that can be stressful on a country because if again you're having a lot of people, you have to feed that many more people and you have to be able to help that many more people. It makes the whole situation a little bit more complicated for the Han, that's for sure. Things that they're known for, big accomplishments. This is our discussion, like I said, about all of these different dynasties, is that they kind of come, they might make some changes, they might not. They'll have some accomplishments, some bigger than others. Probably the most important of the accomplishments of the Han Dynasty is the construction or finished construction, to be very honest, because this is something that's already been built parts of the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is, at this moment in time, one of the most well known landmarks, man made landmarks in the world. One of the again, eight wonders of the world. I think that's where we're at right now. There's eight of them total, alongside with the Taj Mahal and again the pyramids of Giza, things like that. The Great Wall is a huge, important landmark in the world. The reason that the Han created this wall was to protect the people of China from northern invaders. And today, of course, the Great Wall plays a large role in tourism to China, things like that. It's no longer a functioning defense. Other things that the Han were known for, their textile manufacturing, the harnessing of different natural elements to create energy. So thinking like water mills and windmills, so people don't have to do work quite so hard to make things. We're going to see that they're going to utilize iron casting. The use of iron casting leads to the inadvertent discovery on how to make steel as well as paper. Again, the Chinese are going to be one of the first civilizations in the world to utilize paper in the same way. Of course, we know that the Egyptians had papyrus. This is different, but again, still important. During the Han Dynasty, shipbuilding is going to improve, meaning they have the capability to travel faster, more reliably, things like that. Uh, Probably, I would say, amongst these accomplishments, the second most important to the Great Wall is the fact that during the Han Dynasty is where Confucianism is going to get a lot of the physical artifacts left behind. Confucian classics are going to be published and distributed to everybody, remembering there's mandatory education here. So everyone is being taught the same things and expectations, which is a huge change. And it's going to leave a lasting mark on the people of China, basically. Yep. But Han do not last forever. This family will go through a period of decline, which will eventually lose them the mandate of heaven, and someone will come up and take it from them. So, what is it that leads to the decline of the Han dynasty? Well, there is first and foremost weak rulers. In the last handful of years of the Han dynasty, the people in charge are going to be not great. There is corruption. There ends up being this sort of unequal distribution of land, where the peasant population, which gets so large during the Han Dynasty, is going to suddenly find themselves again struggling that much more because a handful of wealthy families have all of the land and power, which is not great. Even though the Great Wall is there, they're still not able to protect themselves totally from these various nomadic tribes of the north. They keep happening, and the people lose trust in the Han dynasty to protect them. And of course, when they lose trust and the mandate of heaven seems to be gone, civil wars. So that's what ends up happening. A civil war breaks out in China once again. We're going to do the next three dynasties all in one slide because they're all relatively short and they all have smaller impact in the long run. Okay, so we're going to start with the Sioux. So the Sioux is the sixth dynasty. And again, you're going to notice if you're looking or keeping track of the dates here, there is a large window from the end of the Han to the beginning of the Sioux because the Civil War is going to last for 300 odd years. It's very chaotic. It's a tough time to live in China, that's for sure. Similar to the era of warring states that happened earlier. This is again a very similar situation. Once the Sioux family takes control, they're not going to be in control for very long. They do manage, though, to build something that is hugely important to the, I guess, furthering along of the success of China, and that is building the Grand Canal. A canal is a man made waterway, right? I'm hoping you knew that. Again, if not, you should definitely look into it a little bit more. And it connects the Yellow and the Yangtze rivers, the two major rivers of China. That again created all of this population and where civilization is. It's engineering wise an absolute marvel. It's fabulous the way that they've managed to put this together, and they do it so quickly in this time period, thinking in the, again, mid to late 6th to 7th century here. It also, as far as why is it important, that's why there's a bunch of exclamation points right there. The Grand Canal opened up trade between these two places in a way that, again, it was so much more difficult to trade until the Grand Canal existed. And it allows for all of China to prosper in a way that again that they hadn't been able to before. Unfortunately, to be able to build that canal so fast, the Sioux make a lot of the same mistakes that the Qin did. They're going to force people to work on it. They're going to force their people to pay high taxes to pay for it. The people, the actual family who are in charge of the Sioux dynasty, yeah, they're kind of crazy. They're like eccentric. They lead a pretty lavish lifestyle. So those taxes are not just going to that canal, but also funding the lives of these rulers, which people do not agree. Militarily, they might have won control in 581, but they were not great in other instances. So they lost the favor pretty fast, right? So when the Sioux lose the mandate of heaven, is going to be taken up by the Tang. The Tang, again, are going to do what a lot of the early dynasties do. Once they gain the mandate of heaven, they're going to try and fix things. So a bunch of reforms start to happen with the Tang dynasty. They are going to institute a civil service examination. It's an attempt to try and make sure people are qualified to do their jobs. That's really what that comes down to. Things had gotten a little off course between the Han and to the Sioux. So trying to fix that process. Probably one of the biggest things that the Tang was known for is that militarily they were more successful. They were able to expand the boundaries of China further. Tibet, which is on the western side, today is technically part of China, though they claim to be independent. Tibet, it becomes part of the Chinese empire, again, under the Tang. They'll also be a bit more diplomatic, and they're going to gain some other Asian allies at that time. The Korean kingdom will also become more closely connected to the Chinese in this moment in time. Unfortunately, many years under the Tang is not going to be able to totally eliminate the issues of plotting and corruption. Well, the Tang are going to decline, lose their mandate of heaven, and will be replaced by the Song dynasty. The Song dynasty is going to take over in 906 or 960. And under the Tang or under the Song, I apologize, so many different dynasties. Under the Song dynasty, it's going to be again a time of great prosperity. It's a very peaceful time for the most part because it's a little bit calmer during the Song dynasty. There's a lot more cultural achievement. Again, economically, they're really doing well, taking advantage of the things that the previous dynasties tried to do. Unfortunately, the Song were unable to stop the northern invaders from coming across the wall and coming into China again and again. What ends up happening is that they make a decision to to make an alliance with the Mongols, which is the most famous of those northern invaders and who we'll talk about tomorrow. But unfortunately, that alliance proves not enough to stop the Mongols from taking China when they decide to officially take it. We'll talk all about them tomorrow, that's for sure. Okay. So that's it for notes. That's it for as far as official stuff, new stuff today. What you guys have got as far as work to be completed. First and foremost, of course, is to keep checking Classroom every day for new notes, reminders, assignments, stuff like that. Again, as far as work to be completed by Wednesday, you guys need to be working on your Unit 4 study aid. You don't have any other homeworks for my class, so this should hopefully be not too big of a deal. I told you to start working on this last week. You got at least 11 key terms have to be done by Wednesday. Again, you don't have to submit anything, remember, with these checks is that because you're using the electronic templates, I can access them at any time. I can see them. Again, I'll be looking at the edit history. I'll be making comments when it's necessary. The biggest issues you guys still have with these and why it is tough for you to be able to be successful on tests and things like that is that you're just not putting the work in here. You need to include all the details that I've given you. You need to think about the why is it important for all the different types of these study aids. The more effort you put into this now, the easier the test is going to be. Just like last unit, it'll be open note, and the best thing to use will be your one study aid that has all the information already there, so it's easier to find and easier to help you with instead of trying to search through everything again, right? So please take your time with that, and the only other reminder is when it's officially due, which will be Friday the 22nd. So we've got about 2 weeks until that happens, all right? And that's all I got. I hope you guys have a good day. And yeah, email me with questions if you got them.